Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about building a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. I'm your host, Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify. Every week, we have the opportunity to bring on authors, speakers, coaches, CEOs, leaders, and nonprofits who are also passionate about putting God back in business. And it is no different this week, ladies and gentlemen. We have an awesome guest today. Let me tell you a little bit more about her. With over 3 decades of experience in healthcare, Marcylle Combs has built a distinguished career as a nurse, director, administrator, and ultimately as the owner and president of a major healthcare organization. After leading her company until August 2018, Marcylle launched three new ventures: Mac Legacy, the Marcylle Combs Company, and Mac Legacy Investments, where she continues to serve as president. Her journey in business revealed a true passion for inspiring and empowering others to reach their fullest potential. There's a whole lot more we're going to get into with her, but ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Fortified Life, Marcylle Combs. Marcylle, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Jason, and thank you so much for letting me be on your show today.
Yes, yes. Marcylle, when someone looks at your bio, they just my goodness, God has graced you to do many things. And Marcylle, we know you just didn't wake up in 2026 and here you are, led multiple companies, sold one. Take us on the journey professionally on how you navigated all those different business moves and what brings you to where you're at in 2026.
Well, it's probably too long of a story to tell you. I'll try to give you the very shortened version. The one I love to tell is that I went to school to be a nurse. I swore several things. It's the never say never issue that I would never work behind a desk. I would do business. I graduated with a major in nursing. I was going to be a bedside nurse or a nurse one-on-one with patient. I was not going to do any of the rest. And I would tell you, even today, even though I have my Bachelor of Science, nurses still don't have a business course that they take during that. Through a whole series of events. I also swore I'd never work with old people. And I would certainly never work with sick and dying people. So I worked in, neonatal intensive care. I did all kinds of teaching of labor and delivery and, prenatal class, all that stuff for about the first 10 years of my career. And then through a series of events, my husband is, he would tell you, educated beyond his capacity. And he went to get his PhD and we moved to West Texas. And in that move, I have 5 children. So if there's mothers out there, I can relate to you too. But I have this whole litter of children. Anyway, I needed to work at a job that was a little more flexible. And so I got offered, I heard about this great job in home health. And of course it's working with the old people and sick people and dying people. And I went to work just as a part-time young mother and fell in love with the work, fell in love with doing that. I eventually bought that company. I sold that company and started another company. I worked in that, ran a big hospital systems, home health, hospice, home infusion, and then went back out on my own
Mm.
after about 10 years and started the company that I then ran for over 20 years. We went from 0 to about 60, 70 million in that period of time and learned so many things, raised my children. That's the company I sold. And again, I don't have enough good sense. So if you were asking me about how to make a retirement plan, I'm not your girl. I don't know how to do that, and I don't even know why people do it.
Mm,
So now some days I think, wouldn't I have an easier life? My husband's retired military, and he's gleefully happy being retired. So good for you. But I'm not the person to, so don't call me if you want to know how to retire. But anyway, I worked in service businesses. So
mm,
I learned business through a mentor of mine, a friend who continues to be a friend these days, who taught me business and taught me how to do that, how to get financing, all the good things and the bad things when it comes to running a business. And I bought books like, how to start a business for dummies, how to start a nonprofit. Over the years, I had a nonprofit. I still have the nonprofit that allows my employees to give back. And then, I'm doing consulting in the home care and hospice space now. That's one business. And then the Marcylle Combs Company, which is my heart business, if you will. That's the business that I really, my main thing is to just give back and try to help other leaders be better leaders. And then I dabble in real estate. And you know, I I think you're a John Maxwell leadership coach or trainer, and John would tell you that you learn more from your failures than you do
mhm.
your successes. I That's the part that I think maybe I don't want to learn any more lessons from. I try to have modified failures. But I will say I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. That's my shortest version, Jason, that I can give you.
Marcel, I love that. Number one, just thank you for taking us on the journey because you caused me to have so many more questions that because there's so many the stories and the experiences you have. And Marcel, one that I feel like, especially when you get to my age group, the millennials and Gen Z, there is almost this romantic nature with entrepreneurship. And
Yeah.
you have all these influencers out here and they're just romanticizing. You need to start a business, you need to do all that. What are some misconceptions, Marcel, that maybe the younger folks are buying into? What's a more realistic and yet still encouraging
Uh-huh.
way to look at business and not just kind of falling for all these tropes that people are seeing on social media?
I love the entrepreneurial spirit of, the millennials and Gen. Think millennials are in particular entrepreneurials. I think that the rosy picture sometimes, and I love a new project. Oh my word. Give me a new possibility running at that, starting it. What I don't like is what comes right after that. And I
Mm,
I think that's what if you're an influencer, you're really just trying to sell things when the day is done. Eventually, that's where they get first you get to be popular, and then you have to sell products to get to the I have a couple friends who do that, and they've done really well, but the grind is not the newness, not the fun part, not the conceptual, not the creative. It's the how do I make payroll?
mhm.
How do I have cash flow? I had actually a banker tell me a long time ago. He was very discouraging, I might add, but there was always the gray lining to any cloud for him. But I learned a lot from him, and he said, "You know why most businesses fail, Marcel?" And of course, what do I know? No, I don't. And he said, "Because of cash flow."
Mm,
And cash flow, I try to be encouraging because I didn't have any money. I mean, I bought my first business. I didn't have any money. I wasn't brilliant with finances. I'd made all the wrong decisions. I learned everything the hard way. I was telling someone earlier today, there were I think it was 2 or 3 years because we had gotten young family and credit card debt didn't come from money, didn't come from college graduates, all the things that make you fail in life that they say.
Mhm.
And we went on which was driven a lot by me. We went on a completely cash basis for over 2 years. No credit cards, no bank account, no. Now, this has been a long time ago. It would be hard. There really weren't debit cards then. It would be hard to do that, even harder now to try to do all cash because the world slowly but surely not doing that. But, from that perspective, I think it's how do I make payroll? How do I do cash flow? Just the grind of the quote unquote, you're a disc trainer. I'm a high D person. Depends on the day as to which one I lead with. So I like new things. I like to drive, but I don't like the consistent daily. And that
Mhm.
to me is the hard part. That to me for the millennial is, you know, some sometimes you've got to just figure that out. And I see a lot of great ideas that that don't have the cash flow to sustain. And that's the hard part. It can be done. It
Mhm.
it can absolutely be done. And I am a prime example of that. And I'm not any brilliant, you know, Ivy League college, graduate. I went to a small university and got my master's from a small university. But that's the part you have to deal with. How am I going to make it not just the first month, the second month, but the 14th month and the 18th month?
Wow, Marcel, thank you for those pearls of wisdom. I just think that's just some much needed clarity in the
Mhm.
days that we're living in when you look out at the workplace and in the marketplace. Marcel, another thing that I thought about, this comes up too, the concept of multiple streams of income, but in your case, I'm gonna call it multiple streams of influence because you have multiple businesses and a nonprofit. How did you know or decide when to take on more? Like you have one, okay, there's this other idea. Do I sell it? How do I run it? Do I have enough leadership? What was it like to navigate? Okay, I can handle doing all of this. What were some of the factors that played a part for you in making those decisions?
You know, 2 things. My current or 3 things, I guess. My current businesses, 1, the consulting company, it comes down to the people, and
Mm,
I am fortunate that I have worked with a lot of people who continue to wanna work for me. I could hire even today, I could hire a lot more people than I have the revenue to employ. Because I am, I am I'm a person of faith, and I am a consistent person. I could never be an axe murderer because they would figure it out right away. So I said this to my son. I said, "If I die, just remember that I'm a person that of habit." So if it goes, and I can't say I'm the neatest person in the world, but if it goes on the desk, it's probably gonna be on the desk. If it goes in the closet, it's probably when I would before you had real good cameras on your phone, I would always park kind of in the same place in an airport. You know this because you said earlier, Jason, before the show started, that you traveled. I mean, there's nothing worse. You've been gone, you travel every week, you're back to the garage where your car is, and you don't know whether it's on first level, second level, third level, fourth level. And for me, you're a big guy, but for me, I got this big old hunking suitcase. I don't know how they get by with no elevators in these car garages, but there aren't any. Have you noticed that? Most of them. And so I'm dragging this suitcase. Anyway, so you have to park your car in the same place anyway. So people will I think that is the key. One is like right now I have a risk reward thing sitting in front of me. I think you have to modify your risk. So with the business, whenever I would decide on a new project, I'm I would say now AI, I love AI. I love what it can do for us. I didn't run tons of feasibility studies. You know, it was I never had a partner. It was me and the bank. Now the bank is your partner because they got a lot to say about nothing they know about, but they control your line of credit or your money. So I would try to modify with the cash I had the risk I had to take. And
Mhm.
I'm making that decision right now with one of my real estate ventures. Do I take the risk? Is the risk worth the reward? And and really, I, I'm fairly good in math, so I can kind of do how long it's going to take me to do my return on investment. I think
Mhm.
that's an important question is what is my ROI and when does that happen and can I sustain it in the meantime? So that's the I guess that thing never stops and depending upon your own risk. I always say when it's your own money, it's a lot harder to risk
Mhm.
than it's not when you don't have any money when you're first starting out. It's pretty. I went to bed one night, was completely out of debt because of my, cash free kind of thing. Woke up the next morning, I was $1 million in debt to my first company and a $500,000 line of credit and a whole bunch of people who needed a paycheck every 2 weeks based on Marcylle Combs. That's the kind of thing that I deal with even now. What's the risk reward and where is the return on investment and is it worth it? And it's got to be your faith. If it's the nonprofit, it's got to be your reward, which might be financially. What do you want, Jason? What's your target number that you want in the bank? And what, time? Where your if you have little kids, most millennials got married later. They had kids later, so they got little kids and they got old parents. So, is it worth your time that you will not get back? Or maybe there is an outcome there.
Marcel, I feel like you just took us to like that was like an MBA case study. Like, hey, if you're thinking about starting, acquiring another business, here's some decision-making criteria. So that is huge. Folks, if you're listening, you may want to go back and re-listen to that segment because that was gold. That was
Oh gosh.
gold right there. So Marcel, I appreciate you sharing that. Marcel, one of the things I was thinking about, I told you before we came on recording this, is the different industries that you've worked in and in home health care, Marcel, what don't people know
Mm,
about that business? I think there's like this perception out there, but I feel like when you step into healthcare at various different angles,
mhm.
people kind of make assumptions. But what don't people know enough about home health care?
When it comes to home health or hospice or home care in general, I will tell you home health, Medicare home health, and Medicare certified. That's what you have to get for either one home health or hospice. You really become a government contractor. And I know that a lot of times has a negative connotation for a whole lot of reasons. I'll tell you that. Nobody's selling $20 million toilets in home health or hospice, but it is a very regulated business. And this is what a friend of mine that was getting out of the business said to me is, IRS and those guys, yeah, sure, they could send you to jail, but they can't really take your home. There are a lot of things they can't take. Medicare, however, they can take everything.
Mhm.
Those are the real feds and they can send you to jail and they can take everything you own and they can do everything. What I hate to see, we've seen home health and hospice being and taken over by pure business people. that is a recipe for disaster. You need to know we have private equity companies that will call us, and we do a lot of work for them, and, good work for them, but they have to know they're coming after you, Jason, if things go wrong, and you may just consider this an investment. There are so many regulations and regulations with teeth. We take phone calls from people who are crying who got sold this what seemed like a great business idea. They knew nothing about it. They knew nothing about the risk. They saw the spreadsheets and they saw the stuff, but they didn't see the other side that was all the government regulations that follow that. Now, from a heart perspective, and from really, I was a secular business, but we would call ourselves a faith-based business because I was faith-based, and I was married to a chaplain in the National Guard who then went full-time anyway. But on top of that, I had a personal faith. So, you know, 70% of what I did had to do with a ministry at work. It was a ministry to my employees because it's a service organization. My main product was selling services to the home, and it was to my patients. I'm a real slow boil, but if you want to make me mad, you do something to a patient. Someone's
Mm.
sick, tired, maybe on the last days. But I would say from a business perspective, don't do it unless you know what the risks are. And the risks are big, not just financial, but they're also big from personal liability in those companies. Because, like I said, most of your patients in either one of those, they're probably 85% Medicare Advantage or Medicare, traditional Medicare. And you are a government contractor, so you have to know the rules, or you better, by dog, have somebody who understands the rules that you're gonna hire, and then you have to keep tabs on it because the minute you're an owner, you're responsible.
Mhm.
Does that sound like a good selling point?
No, I think you painted the what I love about what you shared, Marcel, is you painted a picture of an industry where I think you kind of alluded to this because you said there's a lot of business people. So you kind of see maybe the person has the heart and not necessarily like the business acumen. Then you
Yeah,
got the other side. They see only the business side and they kind of lack the heart. So I appreciate the wisdom because you're bringing up kind of the holistic picture where the industry has been, where it's going, and what matters. Like you said, hey, if you do this, you work for the government too,
yeah.
and some people, like you said, not knowing that it's like that paints a new reality very quickly. So I appreciate you letting folks know that if you work in that line of work, you're pretty much a government contractor, and that's huge. That's huge. Man, Marcel, I could talk to you for 4 hours just about just different businesses. Marcel, what do you think about this? But
I might always have an opinion. It might not always be right.
I got you. Marcel, I think this is the perfect time. Folks, I don't, for our YouTube audience, there's something in the background. There's this little book, this nice little
Oh,
brown book. And folks, not only does she consult, not only does she speak and lead, she's also an author. So, Marcel, would you tell us about your book, Never Hire Your Friends, Leading Your Workplace Through Genuine
I just
Connection?
happen to have it. It never is crossed out. So
Yes.
basically, it means always hire your friends.
Mhm.
And that's what and really this book, I'm not a girl who likes to sit for hours on end in front of a computer and edit and write and rewrite and work with an editor that wants you to rewrite and rewrite your book. But my employees just wouldn't let me rest until I wrote it down. It's a simple concept, but it's not simple to apply. It's all about honesty and humility and honor. Those are the 3 pillars that I would say, and it's about how to hire your friends and make it work. And again, not it's just like not every personality is equipped to do the kind of work you need done. And so, therefore, not every friend that you have should just be on the chopping block to hire. However, I built probably my first company based on people at my church because, really, frankly, my husband had drugged me to the wilderness and a lovely town, but, a lot of sand there and no beach. But, I didn't know anybody else, so to find anybody, I would just ask my pastor, "Do you know anybody who needs a job? Do you know a doctor who works in healthcare that I could get to give me a referral?" I mean, that's again, you start with your circle of friends, but because of that, I have my very best friend. Actually, I went to lunch with her yesterday. She retired. She has good sense. A number of years ago, and I actually was asking her opinion about the decision I need to make today by 5, just to bounce off of that because one, she has a deep faith, and I know her. She's my best friend in the world. I know her very, very well. We've been friends since before I was married. And and I know she has a wisdom. She might not know the topic, but she knows the wisdom. But I was able to, she ran the whole back office function of my whole company. And even when she didn't have all those deep-seated expertise, MBA type things, but what she had was true wisdom, and I knew that, and I knew I could trust her. But I've had to fire good friends. That's a hard thing to do, and that doesn't get easier. But sometimes the best thing in the world you can do for somebody is to fire them. Had a gal who has a little business. I won't give too many details, but we eliminated her position, and really what she ended up doing was what she needed to do. She needed to start her own little business to do this little product, and she's become wildly successful. And I use her. I use her regularly for this product. Yes, it was hard. It was hard at first. It was a friendship and also a family connection. But that's what I talk about in the book. How can you do that? When I stand in front of a group, I try to discuss those topics. So it's on Amazon. Let me give the plug here. I'm gonna give the plug. I think it's worth the money you'll spend on it. And it's on Amazon. You can just go right on there and, download one or have paperback or hardback sent to you.
Marcylle, I appreciate you sharing this resource with us because there's these tropes that are said in the business world. Oh, don't hire family and friends. And I get family's different from friends and they're friends that are like family. I get that. But I think your book is timely in the sense
Mm.
that a lot of people are navigating this like day to day. Like
Right.
today, somebody's trying to figure out, do I hire my friend or not? And so I think yours may be the first book that I've heard of where it's like, we're just going to outright, like there's a lot of books on hiring, how, and
Right.
systems, but this specific situation, this is timely. So folks, make sure, and we'll have it in the show notes too, you're going to want to go out and grab Marcylle's book because it'll, if it doesn't help you, it'll help somebody for sure. So you could probably buy this for someone because we all know
Absolutely.
somebody.
Buy it for all your friends that you want to
Yeah,
hire. So
absolutely. Marcel, I like to, especially being an author, I like to ask every author just the fun question of what was the hardest chapter for you to write in this book?
Oh, goodness, you have to I think the whole thing, but I think it was I I think conceptually, it's it's trying to put down, for me, a lifetime of how you did something into form. So I would say on probably the chapter on humility, humility is not hard for me. And so the hardest thing I've had to do with this is try to self-promote. So it's
Mhm.
hard to write a chapter on humility when in essence you're promoting who you are and what you did. I mean, from a
Mhm.
pure, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. I've done a whole lot of things. I've been in a lot of places. I've had great blessings, but I have a really hard time self-promoting. And so if anything holds me back from the Marcylle Combs Company, it's it is the humility part that I walk and breathe. It's my team. And
Mm.
truly, even with my podcast, it's my team that made it successful. It's not Marcylle Combs. Now, again, I've done a whole lot of praying, a whole lot of time on my knees, a whole lot of time that I've said, "Why me, Lord? Why do I have to be made in this way? How do why can't I just throw the chips in and forget this stuff?" I don't know. It's just, how I'm wired. But I would say that because it almost is like a dichotomy, it's that thing of I'm talking about humility at the same time I'm promoting how humble I was.
Mhm.
Those two things are hard for me.
Wow. I think there's probably more people if they would admit it. Marcellus, probably a few people that could probably, even if they, kind of put their hand up kind of sheepishly, I bet there's more that struggle with that. So I do appreciate you sharing that with us. Marcel, when you think about 2026, you've got all your different ventures that you're running. What are you excited about the back half of 2026? Is there anything cooking that you have coming up or and I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want people, oh, Jason, Marcel shouldn't have shared that. Not trying to get her in trouble, but is there what when you roll out of bed are just like, man, this is really exciting. That's gonna happen this year.
Well, there's a stretch goal and then there's reality. I will tell you what my number and John, I know John Maxwell well, and he doesn't know this goal for me, but my number one goal, I could speak for basically free or something less than free almost every day, really, Jason. Why do people want to hear me speak? I don't know. I enjoy it. I love it. But so my turning point is one, I want to be the female John Maxwell
Mm,
because John can sit in front of a group in a chair and have people on the edge of their seat for 2 hours. I I mean, it is so amazing, and I've heard John speak more times than I can tell you. If people ask me who's my unofficial official mentor, it's John Maxwell, and if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's got 40,000 books. I think 90 or some. He'd be so disappointed that I don't know that answer. But that's who I wanna be. I also want to be able to be paid well for that, so that's what I have cooking. Now, do I know how to do that? I know how to do healthcare. I could start a home health or a hospice in a heartbeat. I can do that. Now, is it easy as pie? No, but I know how to do that, and I think I could be successful at that. There's my big, humble answer. But how do I self promote and get paid well? Which I just asked Deanne, how much should I charge? And I liked her answer, but that's not what John charges. He's in the top 5 of the highest paid speakers in the world.
Mhm.
I mean, whoa. People pay that kind of money to hear him speak. And that's how whether I'll live long enough to be able to do that, I don't know. He's spent his whole life doing that, but I would like to be that good. I would like to be so good that you could sit and listen to me for 2 hours and think, "Wait, it's not time. It's not time to end." And that's what I have cooking in 2026, and I really shouldn't say that out loud. So if you're out there and you wanna pay a girl a decent amount to speak, I'm your girl. And that's that's what I that's what most excites me. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I've got a lot of other things cooking, but the decision I need to make today doesn't necessarily excite me. It does in a way, but not like the goal of how could I speak 2 or 3 times a month and make it really be worth it. Really be worth it for people to say, "Wow, I'm so glad I came."
Well, folks, exciting things coming for Marcylle Combs. Make sure I will tell you, I would sit for 2 hours, Marcylle, because just some of the even offline stories we had, you've got some awesome stories, and I feel like even for me, you've barely scratched the surface. So I'm sure I look forward to hearing about how the rest of your year goes. Just getting a little teaser here. Before we end, Marcylle, you did mention this, but I wanted to make sure that you let everybody know you yourself also have a podcast.
I
Tell
do.
us tell us about it and where can people listen?
It's called 50% with Marcel Combs. You can basically get it. It's on Apple. You can get it on any podcast, just about any podcast venue. It's focused on women in leadership. So that's been I've had the blessing partially because of the field I worked in to lead a lot of women, and I have had a real heart to help women achieve whatever they want to or help encourage them to just take the risk, jump off the cliff. Now, I do have some men that listen, and I would tell you that the topics are business and they are leadership. I have from crazy people living in Italy telling people how they get their Italian citizenship, all the way to friends who are running huge nonprofits on trafficking. And so it is any topic that you can imagine. We're over 200 episodes now. And I would say, even though it's geared toward women in leadership, the topics are, my son listens to them. So he'll dial in. Sometimes I'll say, you got to hear this one on cybersecurity. It'll frighten you where you want to throw out every electronic thing, including your refrigerator in your house, or food safety. Or, I mean, like I said, I know, Jason, you interview lots of people, and I know you share my heart on, gosh, we don't have enough time on this earth. Hopefully, we have lots of time in heaven to just sit and listen to people's stories. Wow. People come out of desperation, they come out of wealth. It's a wonderful thing. So 50% with Marcel Combs. If you can spell my first name right, you can get to my website, you can get to my Instagram, Facebook, podcast, and you can find me.
Love it, love it. And folks, we will have all of Marcelle's information in the show notes, her book, her podcast, website. If you want to find her, we've got links for you. So don't you worry. Don't you worry. Marcylle, that's all we have time for today here on the Fortified Life. I cannot thank you enough. I have laughed. I have been given wisdom. I have been given insight. I've had aha moments, and I'm sure the audience has too. So, Marcylle, thank you so much for joining us on the Fortified Life podcast.
And thank you, Jason, for the work you do. And just, I'm honored to be able to spend the last hour with you.
Yes, yes. And folks, make sure you check out all the wonderful work that Marcylle is doing. Well, folks, you know how we end things. Don't compartmentalize your faith and the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Fortified Life podcast at the Fortified Life for our YouTube audience, and search the Fortified Life on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your podcast platform of choice. FortifiedLifePodcast.com for the show notes, where you can find all of Marcylle's information. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.